Hey, welcome, my friends, and what a powerful opportunity it is to study about Amalek, which we are told one of the most important energies for a spiritual, conscious human being is to be aware of the negative force of Amalek, as we're taught in the Torah. Zachar es asher asalecha Amalek. Remember what Amalek did to you. B'derech b'tzeischem Mitzrayim, when you were leaving from Egypt. And if we think about our entire journey in life, it's a journey of leaving Egypt. We're trying to leave the space of constriction. And Amalek comes along. And it says, Asher korcha b'derech, that it encountered you on the way. We're going to learn out, and Rashi tells us, based on the Midrash, that the word korcha comes from the word kar. And it doesn't only mean to stumble across, but the word korcha means to cool you off, to make you cold, to make you feel disconnected. So we are individuals that are trying to leave our space of constriction, and comes along this energy force of Amalek, and it comes to cool us off. And it focuses on all of the weaklings that are behind you. It hones into all of those spaces of hones into all of those spaces.
16 people killed. Why?
And it says that you were in a state where you were feeling tired, you're feeling famished, and you had forgotten about Hashem, forgot about God. Our job, the Torah tells us, is to destroy, to blot out this energy force. What is this energy force? Who is this energy force? And the question of this shiur is, what is Amalek? It shouldn't be what is Amalek, it should be who is Amalek. But what we're seeing here from this initial insight into the verses that we've just read is it isn't who is Amalek. It's not that Amalek is an entity, a human, or a nation today, even though historically they were. But it seems that there is a much more holistic field of energy that exists not only outside of us, but inside of us, and attacks us. And what we're going to try and learn tonight is to be able to identify what is Amalek inside of ourselves and how to destroy it, how to blot it out. As the next verses in Exodus tells us that Hashem tells us about Amalek, Amalek v'ilachem im Yisrael b'Refidim, it says that Amalek came to battle with the Jewish people in Refidim. Refidim, the rabbis tell us, comes from the word rifyoin, weakness. It says that when a person becomes weak in their study of Torah, weak in terms of their engagement, that is when Amalek comes. And what does Amalek come to do again? It's there to create confusion. It's there to attack you. It's there to cool you off on your journey outside of. Now, cooling off, not in the sense that you're feeling so hot like it was today in Cape Town, and you need a nice, aircon on or a nice cold cup of water. This is coming to cool you off when your heart is on fire with love and devotion and connection and clarity. Comes along Amalek to create and dampen, create a darkness for an individual. Now, what we're told, and the reason why I'm reading these verses is because we're going to go deeper into them. But we're told another story in Exodus, that what was it that allowed the Jewish people to be victorious against Amalek? So we're told that what allowed us to be victorious is that Moses, together with Joshua, were on the mountain. And it says that when Moshe would raise his hands up into the heavens, the Jewish people would be victorious. And when his hands weren't up into the heavens, then they would be in a state where they were losing the battle. So what is this unique circumstance of having to raise your hands up into the heavens? Where do we see that existing in our own lives? Is this just fanciful stories of the past? How are we able to inculcate some aspect of this into our own lives? We know, as the final verse I want to share with you before we start to go into the deeper sources, if you look at this source I brought you from Exodus, right at the end, verse 15 and 16, it says, "V'yivein Moshe mizbeach v'yikra shemoi Adonai nisi," that Hashem has created a miracle in battling against Amalek. This was the name of a mizbeach, an altar that Moses built. V'yomer ki yad al keis yah milchama l'Adonai b'Amalek medor dor. Says that there is a battle with Amalek that continues from generation to generation. Now we look into the world around us and we see hatred. We look into the world around us and we see anti-Semitism. But what we often don't look at is the hatred and the spiritual darkness that is inflicted inside of ourselves from the energy of Amalek. And there's a lot of deep insights that are brought here, that the word case is in fact the word kisei, which means in Hebrew throne. And it says that with Amalek not destroyed in this world, it's only a partial throne of God. And we know that the letter Hey, as we've been learning many times in Kabbalah, is the final letter of God's name, which is the deep fruition and experience of godliness in our lives. And Yud Hey, we know, is only the first part of God's name. What happened to the Vav Hey? What happened to the final expression of God into this world through our emotions, into our body? Essentially, what we are seeing here is what Amalek is here to do is decapitate us. But not decapitate us only on a, God forbid, physical level, but it comes to decapitate us, God forbid, on a spiritual level. So let's see what they come to inflict. So have a look at the Likutei Halachos. The Likutei Halachos here tells us that Amalek here personifies the full force of the Sitra Achra, which is known as the other side. Amalek marshals their strength to cast down the spiritually weak amongst the Jews, making them seem to feel that they have no hope, that they have no good points, God forbid. So we see this, I'm going to read it to you in the Hebrew. It's unbelievably powerful, as it says, Lahapil es chelushe koyach, those who are weak. It comes to topple them over and to make them feel as if they have no hope. So the experience that a person has in life of having no hope, feeling despondent, is this energy of Amalek. As it says, and we learned this in the verse, that they targeted those individuals who were lagging behind. All those individuals that were spat out of the Ananei HaKavod, out of the clouds of glory, it says that those were the individuals that they attacked and were engaged in some of the most insane and heinous activities, but they are focused. They are focused on all the negativity. They are focused on creating an infection within a wound that already exists. Now, how do we defeat them? So what the Likutei Halachos brings right at the end, listen to this. If an individual is able to find some sense of positivity, even in a time where they have fallen, Amalek will be destroyed and be humbled and be removed when a person starts to discover a sense of positivity. Now, again, what we are seeing from here is Amalek is this energy force that is coming to reap destruction. It is focused not only externally, but more today internally in destroying us, creating a feeling of not having hope and feeling despondent. Listen to this next verse. You know why we are told and commanded, and we are particularly commanded around the time of Purim, to remember Amalek and remember the actions of Amalek. You know why? Kidei Leida. In order to know, Shekol Mine Machshavos Ro'os, every force of negative thinking in your life, what are they? Hein Machshavos Shel Hirhurim Metayvos, the energy forces of desire or the imagination that takes a person out of their existence. Hein Machshavos Shel Kushios, or all of the dissonance and the thoughts that bring a person to dissonance internally, where they feel constricted through their thinking, where they feel like they're tied up in a knot, where they feel like God doesn't exist in their lives. There's no hope. They feel alone. Kulam bechinas Amalek. All of this energy comes from Amalek. And that is why we have titled this, What is Amalek? Not who. Because Amalek is a what? Amalek is an energy force that exists. It's a toxin that we breathe in. And if I could define this toxin by one word, and if I could ask you at home, what would you say? And you can type it into the chat. What word would you define this toxin as? If you could discover one word to define Amalek, what would you suggest? Any suggestions here? What do you say, Jesse? Yetzer hara. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. We have self-doubt from Midrash Melton. Thank you. Self-doubt, Yetzer hara, the evil inclination. All right. Any other suggestions here? What? Stress. Despair. Okay. Very powerful words. Me, not I, from Pauline. Me, not I. Interesting. Maybe you can explain that to us, Pauline. Separation from Taryn. To feel a sense of separateness. Valdik. Okay, very powerful insights. So if I could help you here, because we have hints and we have particular calculations in Judaism that can give us these answers. Anger from Beth. Disconnected and hopeless from Lior. Valdik. Thank you, my friends. Thank you for these very powerful words. And I think in today's day and age, I guess, especially with what's going on, a feeling of despair, feeling Jenna, unresolved trauma. Unresolved trauma, some blockage within the self. Gewalt, a lot of energy to deal with. A lot of energy to deal with. And a mitzvah that in today's day and age, people think of Amalek, gosh, we need to go out to war. There's a war that is transpiring, not in Gaza. In fact, that Gaza exists inside of ourselves. There is a war and there is an infiltration that is creating an energy of despondency, of discontent, of anger, separation, self-doubt, feeling unresolved, a feeling of cruelty, gewalt, despair. I think I mentioned that one already. But if I could tell you what the Sefer Ma'amorim brings, the Sefer Ma'amorim tells us there's a secret. And if we could essentially develop one fundamental viewpoint of Amalek to say, what is Amalek? He says the answer is found in their numerical value. The gematria, which is often a formation that looks at the numerical value of the letters within a word and is able to tell us what its nucleus is, what its DNA is, by seeing what other words have the same numerical value. Do you know what the numerical value equivalent of Amalek is? The Sefer Ma'amorim tells us the gematria of Amalek is 240. 240. Ayin, we know, is 70, Mem is 40, Lamed is 30, and Kuf is 100. 240. The same word we find that has the numerical value of 240 is the word Safek. What does the word Safek mean? The word Safek means doubt. Doubt. So we had from Lauren an insight to self-doubt. But we are going to extrapolate not only to self-doubt, but doubt in general. A feeling of, I don't know, I am not in control, I am afraid, disconnected, fearful, lonely, because I don't know what is going on. I'm in doubt. Safek. Now, if I ask you in your life, when are the happiest moments discovered in your life? Generally, if you think about the happiest moments in your life, it is the absolving of doubt. Generally, if you have clarity about something, where you've been waiting for information and you found finally everything's okay, everything's good, or you've been waiting to be reunited, or you've been waiting for something that you don't know if it's going to manifest in a particular, and now it finally has, clearly in front of your eyes. But unfortunately, it seems like 99% of life is in a state of doubt. Probably even the 1% that we think we even know what is, isn't. So how can a person live in a state of joy or happiness if they're constantly living in doubt? So much so that we are told, and if you have a look at this particular explanation here, you'll see the Likutei Halachos. The Likutei Halachos brings. But before I tell you this, before we understand this, actually, we'll go into this now. So what we've seen is the word Amalek. The word Amalek has the same numerical value as the word Safek. Safek means to have doubt. To live in a state of doubt, to not have a known, is a very painful space to live in. Yeah, Richard. We'll see. We'll see. But at this point in time, its significance is that it's hinting to this other word, Safek. I want to read to you the Likutei Halachos here, dealing with the mitzvah of washing one's hands. Now, if we think about the significance of washing one's hands, can we link it back to something that transpired in the verses that we learned before? What is of significance regarding washing our hands? Anyone recall at home, or those who are in the home of the shul here, where did we see some relevance to washing hands or anything to do with hands? Yeah, Jen is telling us it's about cleansing impurities. But if we started off dealing with these verses about battling Amalek, engaging with this negative force, yes, very good. Matthew has told us, we saw that there was a scenario that Moses lifted his hands up into the heavens. And that's when we were victorious. What's that got to do with washing hands? Now listen to this unbelievably deep and beautiful insight into the mitzvah of washing one's hands before eating, when waking, particularly when waking up in the morning. Listen to what he says. Listen to this. He says when a person loses their mind, or particularly when they lose their consciousness, and what is the definition of consciousness? That everything Everything is in a state of orchestration. Everything is in a state of intentional placement. But what happens, even as I say that was difficult to get out, because what we often say is we say, it's all from Hashem. Everything's from Hashem. Okay, but we say it as if we don't understand it or mean it. What does it mean that everything is from Hashem? There is nothing random. Every step that you take, every energy force, we were traveling today and I was listening to a podcast, and there are scientists working on this concept that they found that there is nothing random in this world, and how one seemingly irrelevant scenario, and we know of this as the butterfly effect, how every single thing, famously the movie Sliding Doors, there's an energy force where even 5 minutes late to something will have an effect for the rest of your life. So every engagement, every movement, every turn that a person has in their life leads to something. And what these scientists were suggesting is that we aren't controlling anything. We can't control anything, but we can influence everything. Meaning that in our lives, we have a scenario where we understand everything is not in our control, but everything is being influenced by Hashem. Every step and everything, every turn. Now, what happens is an individual falls into the perception that there's something called nature. And the way that nature works is if you bake some bricks and you build it up and you make a home, then it will stay. And you think to yourself, I can control nature. I can control my environment and I can control my life. If a person says that, he writes, that's called you being unconscious, and that means you've lost your mind. If you think you are in control of anything, you are delusional. That's what he's saying here. And ikar hachnosam, the way to destroy this delusion, hu rak alidei hayadayim, the kedusha, is to have holy hands. Shezoichim laharim oisam el hadas, that you are able to lift up your hands. And why do you lift up your hands? And this is the main reason why we wash our hands according to Kabbalah in the morning. That your hands are the perception that you have control. That you can take, grab, manifest, do. And you running your life. But we saw that the way to beat Amalek was Moshe Rabbeinu was saying, this is not you. This is you. Lifting your hands to your das, to your consciousness. Understanding that everything and every step and every moment and every certain interaction that I have in my existence is not part of the natural realm, but it's particularly placed and orchestrated from Hashem. And this is the meaning of lifting hands versus having the hands below. This is how to beat Amalek. Amalek, who are klaliyos kol oivdei kachavim v'sitra achra b'chinas reishis goyim Amalek v'Amalek hayakoyfe b'ika v'talako b'teva chas v'shalom. My friends, he's saying like this: the lowest moments in your life, the most emptiest moments in your life is when you think you're in control. When you lose yourself to the spontaneity of life. When you become so cemented in your own reality and you don't open yourself to the opportunity of every moment and the understanding that you're not running the show. One of the most powerful teachings which I heard from Eckhart Tolle is that we think that we are the dancers and life is the spotlight. And we think that it's all about us. But he says, no. Life is the dancer and we are the spotlight. We need to allow ourselves to spotlight our consciousness on every moment and how it's living and how it's interacting, how it's coming, and what is it going to take us to? I don't know. But let me be open to it. Because I don't know and I'm not in control of anything. When we relinquish that control, we tap into the essence of happiness. When we delude ourselves into control, we fall into the darkest delusion of depression. And this, he says, Ki ikach nas Amalek, the main way to destroy Amalek, al yedei emunah b'hashgacha Hashem yisbarach, is to recognize that there is nothing random about existence. And the directions and the steps, and sometimes even the slips that exist in life, and not only sometimes, every time, the slips as well. As the Baal Shem Tov famously taught, Im shachoyach tishkach. There's a concept that says, if you will surely forget. Now he says, on a deeper Kabbalistic level, even our forgetfulness is from God. Even the mistakes that we make are completely orchestrated from Hashem in order to take us into a particular space. So to sit with our lives and to exist in that space, to relinquish control, to be present, is this space of lifting your hands up into consciousness. Now listen to this next Likutei Halachos. This is unbelievably powerful. And this tells us what one of the biggest tests we have in our lives. One of the biggest tests that we have in our lives is dealing with doubt. We as human beings hate doubt. You hear someone said something, you want to figure it out. What did they say? Who did they say it to? How do I figure it? Let me call them. You hear something might happen. You can't sit with it for a second. We don't like unknowns. We hate unknowns because unknowns make us face the reality that we're not in control. So we suddenly don't know what to do with that space. So listen to what the Likutei Halachos now says in Hilchos Shabbos. It says and tells us about Avram Avinu. When Avram Avinu was sent to the land of Israel, you know what Hashem says to him? Lech lecha me'artzecha, me'ladatcha, me'beis avicha, ela aretz asher areka. Leave all of these places of known. Leave your parents' home, leave your birthplace, leave the nation and go. Where should you go? Where's he going? Wherever I show you. Leave to the land that I will show you to go. Okay, cool. Now, what do I type into the GPS? What do I put into Waze here? What do you want me to type into Waze? Ela aretz asher areka? Just go? Gvart. Many people think that the biggest test was him leaving these three places. Can you imagine leaving into an environment where you don't even know where you're going? Into ultimate suffix, into ultimate not knowing. I don't know where I'm going. But I ask you, does anyone actually know where they're going? Does anyone know where they're going? You know where you're going, Richard? Where are you going, brother? Maybe you could share some insight with us.
This is just a test of faith. Saying have faith.
Yeah, saying have faith, of course. But look, what does it mean to have faith? Listen to this unbelievable revelation of the Likutei Halachos, Rabbi Nassim. He says, you know why God didn't reveal to him the land? He didn't tell him. in order to create a beloved energy for the land and reward for each speech. What does that mean? This is the biggest test of a person. That Hashem doesn't show us what is waiting for us after this moment of doubt. In this moment of tribulation, in this moment of uncertainty, when we have an option to say, I don't know. And you know what? I'm not in control. And you know what? It's everything in Hashem's hands. And not only that, it is perfectly orchestrated for my evolution of consciousness, for me to be experiencing this now. And whatever's going to happen is necessary to the ultimate good. In relinquishing that control, in saying that I listen and I have ultimate clarity in Hashem, even though I live and have so much lack of clarity now, allows you to take the next step. And going through those moments of doubt and darkness allow you to access the prize. Now, often what's waiting within those spaces of darkness is unbelievable, unbelievable reward. Now, remember, and we're in a similar scenario now. We don't have a house. We had a beautiful house. Now we're in a scenario we don't know where we're gonna live. Now I can live in a state of doubt. I am in doubt. I don't know what's going to be. But at the same time, I think back to the number of times that I've been in this exact situation. And every time, not only in a space of finding somewhere to live, but every time in those moments of life where you feel, gosh, what is the outcome going to be now? Gewalt, feeling so, if I can just look at all these words, feeling self-doubt, separation, anger, disconnected, hopeless, unresolved, trauma, cruelty, etc., despondent, doubt. I want to know the answer now, right now. I can't sit with doubt. But I know every single time I've gone through those moments of doubt, unbelievable blessing has been at the end of it. Not only in those moments where I was in constriction of myself from a spiritual perspective, and I held force in myself, even though there were so many quick accesses out of doubt, those weren't real ways to get out of doubt. Holding yourself within doubt is the destruction of Amalek. Lifting your hands up into the heavens and saying, I resolve to not resolve. I live comfortably within the discomfort is the destruction of Safek. And I'll tell you a secret here. Because you know what the word Safek can also spell? The word Safek can also spell the word Sipuk. Sipuk means fulfillment. Sipuk means deep, deep sustenance. And that living through doubt is the most important attribute that a person can have in this life. The ability to deal with the 90% of life, which is doubt, and be best friends with them. You got that? Then you found access to the tree of life. What most people think the tree of life is having everything there to absolve doubt. Can throw money at that, can figure out this, can deal with that. Nothing creating doubt in my life. That is referred to the tree of knowledge of good and evil. You want to live in that? You've become best friends with Amalek. And you know what Amalek wants to do to you? Decapitate you, kill you. Give you the delusion that you are in control. And you are never in control. Your deepest control is to relinquish your control. And this is why Rabbi Nosson tells us that the main test of a person is being given situations of doubt and not seeing what's on the other side. Big sofek, big doubt. If you knew that you would go through this moment of doubt and what was waiting for you on the other side, you'd be so elated. If only we saw what we would actually get by living through these moments of doubt. Now, what happens is when a person is in this state of doubt, they immediately look for ways out. And this is where sin starts to find its way into a person's life. Person turns to all problematic forms of expression of ego that give them a false bout of control that alleviates their lack of control, which is a crazy concept. It further and further embeds an individual into those spaces. Listen to this final one of the Likutei Halachos. He says here, Sheikim Apalas Amalek al Yedei Isgalus Emunah Kedosha. V'alkein haya ikim Apalas Amalek al Yedei Nidud Sheina Shel B'chines Beira Mindame. Listen to what he says. Another fundamental enemy force that exists in our life is something called our imagination, something called our medame. Now, it's interesting the Kabbalists bring down that the word dimaot, which are tears, come from the word medame, which means to have imagination. Now, what happens when a person's in doubt? What happens when you don't know? The worst infection comes in, and that is our imagination. This will lead to this, which will then lead to that, which will lead to this, and Gewalt. I don't want that to happen. And then that becomes our reality. You've just taken 5 steps from an unknown. And what he's saying here, and we'll see this especially during the time of Purim, where we just came out about the destruction of Amalek, where the main miracle, you know, when everything turned, when Achashverosh was sleeping, Nadada, it says, the king dozed off into sleep, and then he woke up to learn about Mordechai, and then everything turned from that moment. Because you know what sleep is? Sleep is the clarification of one's imagination. Sleep is when you live in the world of imagination. And that nexus is where all of the miracles in the destruction of Amalek transpired. That he writes, the main destruction of Amalek is healing one's imaginative process and process of deduction using their imagination. Check this out, another unbelievable teaching. He says, when Haman comes to find Mordechai, remember, for those who don't know, Haman is from the progeny of Amalek. It says when Haman comes to Mordechai, you know what Mordechai was studying? He was studying the laws of the Omer offering. And it says, Haman says to him, the measure of your barley offering will one day come to defeat him and his sons. I mean, crazy words coming out of Haman's mouth to Mordechai. You're learning about the Omer offering, Omer So'irim, which was an offering of barley. And Haman says to him, eventually you will come to defeat me. Now, what is this coming to teach us? So you know what the word So'or means? So'irim in Hebrew is barley. But Rabbi Nachman teaches us elsewhere, the word So'or also means Se'ar. What is Se'ar? Your hair. What is our hair according to Kabbalah? Our hair are the toxins and the excretions of the thoughts of our mind. According to Kabbalah, that's what it is. That's why they say Rabbi Akiva was bald. Okay, maybe that's a different way of perceiving not having hair. It's maybe a compliment. But the excretions of the mind are found within the hair. And what he's saying to him is your oimer sa'orim, your oimer sa'ar, the offering of your hair will eventually come to defeat me. Haman, who is this energy force of Amalek, which comes along to create confusion in our minds, in our thoughts, in our imagination, in living within doubts. He says to him, eventually you'll come to defeat me. You, Mordechai, who is the energy of healing this, which we said is about lifting your hands up into the heavens, saying, I'm not in control. And everything in this world is in control. There's nothing beyond the control of Hashem. And all of those minute elements of life that I look at and looks like a random occurrence. Why did this leaf come this way? Why did that car stop there? Why did I feel like I need to go to the bathroom? Why do I have to go get a coffee? Everything is happening for a reason. Those sliding doors of life are opening up on an exact moment level. That is the destruction of Amalek. When a person loses that recognition, that consciousness, they fall into despair. They fall into hopelessness. Their life becomes cold. They don't feel like they're in control. And the only way that they start to feel like they're in control is when they have these bouts of feeling in control. So they go shopping. Now I feel like I'm in control. I bought something. Now it's mine. I got control over it. They go eating. I can consume this and have an experience. And then they need more and more and more. And what we see here, the greatest manipulation of Amalek is control over people, relationships, sexuality becomes one of the greatest downfalls of a person who lives within these spaces of doubt. You know what's also crazy? Is if you take the word safek, which is the word doubt, and we said living within safek gives you sipuk, gives you the energy of fulfillment. If you rearrange those letters, you know what you spell? You spell the word psak. The same word, safek, spells the word psak. What's the word psak? What? A portion? No, that's a pasuk. Very good. The word psak is when you're dealing with the laws of halacha, the Jewish laws, and you want clarity in what to do within a particular law, you get psak. Psak means to clarify. That's why one of the most vital components of a person's spiritual diet is the study of halacha, the study of Jewish law. Why? Why can't we just learn about psychology? Why can't we just learn about all of the necessary physical elements that make us feel positive? Because the antidote that we've seen is the light of Torah, and the expansivity and the experience of clarification of doubt within halacha is what allows you to reach a state of psak. Psak halacha comes along to destroy Amalek because it's about finding clarity. If you look at a Gemara, have you ever seen a Gemara that just comes along simply and says, you know what, there's one opinion, everyone's chilled, everyone agrees, no discussion, no arguments. Have you ever seen that? Doesn't exist. You know why? Because our job in this world as spiritual entities is to engage with doubt, to engage with the multiplicity of life and reach a psak and reach clarity. Clarity is the ultimate goal, but clarity is not found in control. Clarity comes in the absolving of control, in lifting your hands up into the heavens. As it says, one of the most powerful energy forces I mean, he goes on to discuss how one should clap and dance. Yeah, clapping and dancing, as long as you also have it together with the study of halacha, but clapping and dancing. We're not going to go into it right now, but clapping and dancing is the expression. I was walking on the promenade the other day, and I saw this lady. She walks onto the sand, and she puts on some earphones, and she starts dancing on the sand, like this total dance to the heavens, dancing. So I'm standing there with my wife and someone else, and like we're looking at this, and like, can't make out if this woman's nuts. When do you see someone, just start dancing? You saw her too, Michael saw her too. Very good. Is she crazy? Like where you see some guy, some individual, it's like your silent disco. You can't do a silent disco in the middle of society. And then I started thinking, and I was talking to my wife, and like, maybe she's the only normal one. Maybe she's the only normal one. And all of us are living in this need to control and this inability to let go and feel free and feel like you can just dance to life. No. Everyone has to walk on the promenade, and then we have to go and feed the dog, and then we have to go sleep, and then everything's so robotic. Because if you're not in control, then you're not alive. But the delusion is you're not alive if you think you're in control. If you can't dance, there's a prerequisite for a Breslov chassid to dance half an hour a day. The Rambam brings you need to exercise at least half an hour a day. But to dance another half an hour, that's going to be a serious workout. Maybe you could do the half an hour of dancing together with, Zumba. Maybe Zumba is a good option. Then you got some dancing and workout at the same time. Gewaldig. But we see this concept of living within doubt, as it says in some of the first verses in the Torah, as it says, "V'yikara Elokim le'or yom l'choisha kara laila." We live with this concept of day, and we live in this concept of night. But the Jewish day, what does the Jewish day start off with? It starts with Erev. As it says, Vayi Erev, Vayi Voker Yom Echad. You want to know what the concept of a day is? You want to know the concept of being alive is? You want to know how to count a day in your life? Is when you are able to take the Erev. You know why night is referred to as Erev? Because it comes from the word arvuvia. Arvuvia means mixed up, confused, lack of clarity. And if you go through that space of doubt and you say, I let it go, I'm allowed, and I actually enjoy these moments. You know how like people get into a space where they start enjoying exercise? You have some people come to the gym or come lift weights or come run. You're like, crazy? Why? What do you want from me? I don't want to do that. That's horrible. And then you have these fanatics that's all they can think about doing. They start to love it. It's these sadomasochists. But what we're trying to get to on a spiritual level is to befriend doubt. When you have a moment of doubt, gewaldig. This is some of the greatest opportunity in life. This is some of the most unbelievable experiences that you'll be able to tap into sipuk, into deep fulfillment in your life if you allow yourself to let go and exist and live in God's unbelievably, beautifully unknown world. Because when you allow that to transpire, you're truly letting go of your ego. You're truly letting go and destroying this concept of Amalek that tries to drag you down into a state of feeling despondent and weak. Now, to conclude here, we're told about Jacob. It says that Jacob, after all of his hardships in life, it says, Bikesh Yaakov Leshev V'Shalva. It says that Jacob He wants to retire. He says, enough tribulations. Let me live in peace. Let me find a nice little home on a mountain somewhere in Israel, and let me just live with my sheep. Sounds gewaltig, yeah? Amazing. But we're told as soon as he asks for this, immediately he's hit with the biggest doubt, and that is his son. His son is kidnapped, doesn't know where he's gone, doesn't know if he's alive or dead. He's told that he's dead, but he feels that he's alive. He lives in unbelievable doubt. And Rashi tells us something so cruel. He says, Tzadikim evakshim neshev b'shalva. Says the righteous seek to sit in peace. Shalva is tranquility. Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's interesting, if you look at the word shalva. Shalva is made up of the words shel, vav, hey. What did we say is one of the energy forces that Amalek comes to destroy is the vav, hey in God's name, Yud, K, vav, hey. It says in the verse, kaska, keska. Keska is only the first two letters of God's name, which represents a person who says, Hashem runs the world. Hashem is everywhere. But when it comes to the unknown of their own life, they forget Hashem is there. They think Hashem has left them. They start to question God. Oh, Gewalt, what's going on here? Maybe Hashem forgot about me. So Yaakov bikesh leishev b'shalva. He wanted to sit in the tranquility of the Vav Hey, which is the expression of God into life, where everything makes sense. He says, God, let me live a few more years of my life with all of my kids around me, everything settled, the sheep buying, and everything being chilled. And immediately he's hit with the greatest doubt. And Rashi tells us that God comes along and says that the righteous seek to sit in shalva. They seek to sit in a space of tranquility. Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu loy dayan. Is it not enough what they have in the world to come? But they want to sit in it in this world as well. The world to come, everything's clear, tranquil. You want it this world as well. So what does that mean? Is Hashem saying we need to suffer? Is Hashem saying we need to suffer in this world because you can't get the world to come if you don't suffer? No. What it's saying is the world to come already has enough clarity. Hashem wants us to find clarity within doubt, because that's the greatest joy that a person can discover. You have everything already clear for you in the world to come. Imagine you can find clarity in the most unclear things in this world. That's the greatest tranquility. And that's what he's saying about Yaakov. Yaakov, I know you want tranquility, but I want you to reach ultimate consciousness. Ultimate consciousness is found in destroying Amalek, is found in relinquishing your need for control and your need to have knowns. As we conclude with the final verse from the Metzudos David on Proverbs, it says like this. He says the greatest joy in life. He says, Ha'aras einayim b'davar musupak yismach lev. The revelation or the clarity of one's eyes to something that is doubtful gladdens your heart. And one of the most powerful verses, Ki ein ba'olam simcha, there is no happiness in this world. Ki hatoras asfekus, like the absolution or the resolution of doubt. But the craziest idea is the literal meaning of this verse. So the general reading is, once you absolve your doubt, once you gain clarity, once you're able to get an answer to your question, once everything's stable, now I can be alive. Now I can feel okay. Now I can feel life. No, that's not the way that it's read. The way that it's read, and it's interesting how the actual translation here in brackets comes along to write this, in brackets, literally loosening or permitting vows. Loosening or permitting doubt. The greatest happiness in life is reached and accessed when you allow. The word hatara or hataras from the word mutar is allowed. As soon as you allow doubt in your life, you access the greatest happiness. Acceptance. But acceptance not of the outcome. Acceptance of the doubt. Sometimes people want to know just even the worst outcome. They just want to get out of doubt. You know, they're just let me get out of the outcome. So I can get out of the doubt. Let me get out of this doubt. Whatever the outcome is. No. The greatest joy and happiness in life is found when you allow, when you loosen, when you coexist, when you permit doubt. I'll give you, and I'll end off with a story, famous story of Reb Noam Elimelech and Reb Zusha, Anopoli. Says that they were both stuck in a prison, and Reb Zusha and the Noam Elimelech were in this environment where there was a pail of excretion. They only had one bucket there, and that's what they used to excrete. But the law is that if there's any human excretion, you can't study Torah. And their apex of spiritual experience, their ability to remove the doubt, was through studying Torah, to reaching psak, to experiencing that doubt, and then going through that space and healing that energy through the study of Torah. And they were extremely despondent. They were extremely despondent. Until one of them saw the other and said, "Why are you so despondent?" And he says, "I can't study Torah." So he says to him, "But don't you understand? The same energy force, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Ein Sof, the endlessness that wants you to study Torah, put you now into this environment that this pail is in front of you. And this now is your Torah. This is what your realm is. This is what you're meant to have." So they started dancing around this pail. They started dancing around it together. Dancing. They were so happy now. Hashem deemed this pail. Hashem wanted them to be here. Not to learn Torah. Hashem wanted them to be here. Now. So the guards came along and they were like, "What's going on here?" These Jews are flipped out. They're so happy about this pail. So they opened the door. They took the pail out and put it outside. Now these rabbis looked at each other. Now they can study Torah. And the same is in our lives. I think this story epitomizes this idea of destroying Amalek. That we often live in existence where we're trying to get out of doubt. And once we get out of doubt, then we feel this momentary relief and happiness. And then we get back into doubt the next day. And we want to have that control. We want to get to a level in our lives. If you ask someone, when do you ever get to a space when you're happy? Once everything is fixed, I can retire, no more doubt. That doesn't exist for anyone. Everyone always lives with doubt. But if you can dance around your pail, if you can dance around the moment that you're in existence of right now, because that's the only thing that you know for certain, by the way. That's the only thing that you know is true, is right now. But what steals our experience of life of the right now is the concern of the doubt of the future. It's the delusion of Amalek that draws us into machshavos ra'os, into dangerous and problematic and poisonous thinking. But dancing around whatever is, accepting whatever is, doesn't mean that you're not going to be pragmatic and do what you need to do to exist in this world, because that's a commandment of God. But you're meant to do so with the understanding that you're not in control. So please, God, Hashem should help us destroy Amalek Hashem should give us the deep, deep satisfaction and the deep, deep clarity that one can reach in letting go and tapping into their inner das, understanding that every single moment and every single thing that is existing is all orchestrated, is all deeply there and placed purposefully for our experience of life. And the more that we let go, the more that we are able to hold on to the innate joy and happiness that is part of our soul. So thank you so much, my dear friends. And please, God, should be with much bracha for all of Am Yisrael and for those that we learned in their merit. And please, God, for all of us, for all of the soldiers, all of the beautiful, beautiful neshamas, please, God, we should see the destruction of Amalek, the absolute eradication of this need for control. Please, God, we should see that ultimate coming of Mashiach with the ultimate sprouting of consciousness and clarity that comes with that. Thank you, everyone. And
thank you, Rabbi.
all the best. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Bye.